In 2015, it was estimated that 1 out of every 6 business owners would seek the help of a business coach. So how has business coaching impacted the landscape for startups and entrepreneurs? Let's get into it. All right, welcome back to this week's episode of Theory of Why. This is a first in the Theory of Why run. This is, I believe, episode, was it, Johnny, 22, 21? I don't even know where we're at.
I think this will be 24.
Oh, great. I was wrong both times. Perfect. Well, joining me in studio, if you've watched Wayncast before, you know him, is Chris Williams.
Hey, how's it going?
So, Chris, you are a director of web services.
Yep, got it right.
And we are talking business coaching and consulting on today's show. And why I thought it would be really good to bring you in is you've developed over 200 websites here. You have a really good understanding of what websites are helpful for businesses, and then also what types of businesses shouldn't have websites. And to lead into this conversation, I wanted to start off by talking about some of the things that I don't believe small business owners do a particularly great job of when it comes to seeking a business coach. And I think small businesses hire on the look of a coach rather than the actual depth of knowledge. And I've talked about this on the show before, where I think business coaches had this giant boom period between 2008 and 2015, largely on the heels of the recession, where people could go in and turn around a business. And the problem was a lot of the people entering the coaching industry were younger. They had no experience in scaling a business. They wanted to be a life coach or a business coach or
Sure.
a partner where they could sit down and say, okay, this is all the things that I would do. And it's like, okay, well, you're 21, you've never ran a business before. Yet as a life coach, you're going to tell me, what I should do more.
Right.
And it's always been one of those things that I can't wrap my head around. I can't understand why someone that young would go into an industry like that without having the experience. And when I started consulting, it was in my late 20s. And even then it felt like, all right, I still need to learn a lot more before I can consult on a lot bigger projects. Right.
Right. Yeah, it was really popular then for a while. I remember seeing, everybody doing the revivals, the business turnarounds, the, bring your business back from the brink type deal. And
well, I think they see shows like Shark Tank, and they see
Exactly.
The Profit, and they see what Gordon Ramsay does
Right.
with all of the the Hotel Hell, and
yeah,
it was a kitchen
Nightmares,
restaurant possible,
yeah.
all that stuff, Kitchen Nightmares, and like, oh, I could totally do that. I have ideas, and it's like you have superficial ideas.
right.
You're like, okay, you need to treat people well, you need to believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, you need to, have a really good product. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, those are all things that I can literally read in any top 5 list
Right.
on Forbes or Entrepreneur, or
Yeah.
like, that's not going to do any meaningful help as we get into the depths of the problem.
Sure. And I think it's nice for business owners to have, or it's comfortable to have people tell you what to do. Like to
Yeah.
just be like, I would do this. Oh, okay. And so like you have someone that's holding your hand through the whole process rather than you having to make all the big decisions.
Do you think that person would, do you think that, let's say you ran the business, would you want someone to tell you what you want to hear, or would you want someone to tell you the right thing to do?
I think for me, it would be something that makes sense. So if they say, I think you should do this, and if I think it's crazy, then I'll be like, all right, let's talk about it. But the right thing to do would have to make sense to me. I think if it's my business and I'm fully invested into it and it's my thing, but yeah, I think that's how I do it.
Yeah, and I think that's a logical answer, and you hit the nail on the head when you said it has to make sense to me. So meaning, it's the coach's responsibility to explain the merit to you,
Right.
so they have buy-in from you.
Yeah.
A lot of times on these reality style shows, it's like, okay, I'm gonna write you a check, Chris, and I own 51% of the company. So now I make all the decisions. I have all of the say, and you just sit in the background while I handle the business. And you're
Right.
like, what the hell are we doing here? Are we working together or not?
Yeah. If the money's right, that's okay.
Well, how much money are we talking about
Right.
here? Yeah. And that's why I think business coaching, if you look at, the amount of businesses that are started on coaching and the ones that end, it's one of the quickest turnarounds. It reminds me of real estate, where they have such a high turnover of realtors because it's a very difficult industry to find success in.
Yep.
Coaching, whether it's life coach, business coach, whatever, it's very difficult to find sustainable, long-term, full-time success, because most people that get into that industry find out very quickly that beyond the platitudes and just, being really nice to people and being their, motivational coach, they don't have a lot of depth to actually help someone get out of the waters of, I guess, being in a difficult spot in their business.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think as we look at kind of the general topic for today, things that I recommend, things I don't recommend, I want to start with social media. And so let me ask you, do you think every business should be on social media?
Ooh. I'm sure there's some that don't need to be, but none really come to mind. It's definitely, I think it would be rare to not have it.
Yeah.
Because that's usually one of the first things that people go to check your validity.
Yeah.
They want to see, how you handle customers. They want to see your ratings. They want to see pictures. Are you a trustworthy, business?
Yeah.
So
I would agree. I think the majority of business owners ought to have some type of social media presence.
Right.
The depth of that social media presence we can talk about, and I think that's heavily up for debate. One industry that I've consulted on before is like B2B manufacturing. So I used to consult for a company that was a middleman between Ford and an overseas company. And basically all they did was, not all they did a lot, but their main job was to be logistics for the manufacturing pieces that were coming overseas and then working their way to the automotive companies.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So they provided all the logistics. Does that company need an Instagram presence?
Probably not.
Probably not, because they're going to be getting manufacturing pieces and parts overseas. It's not like they're going to be, we're huge in Taiwan. Our Instagram's booming. They already have their niche carved out. So even a website, unless it's like a splash page, probably wouldn't even be terribly appropriate either.
Right.
And that's really like the answer to all of these questions. Does your business need X? Revolves around what your strategy for your business is going to be.
Right.
And I guess the thing that's always bothered me, and I talked about this at the last marketing mashup that we did here in Brighton, was people, especially marketing people, say, if your business isn't online, you don't exist.
Sure.
That's just not true. I just don't believe that, like that you can't have a successful business without being online. One of the events I went to recently was a referral network. It was like a breakfast. The majority of the businesses that were there, over 80% of their business came from referrals, had very little to do with their digital marketing and website. And these are businesses that are between $600,000 a year and $1 million a year. So that's significant money not coming from digital marketing.
Sure. Yeah, I thought it was pretty crazy. There was one of our clients that we were talking to was a tree service guy. And he was saying he didn't have a website. We were trying to sell him a website, telling him, the benefits of it and stuff. And because I used him for my own house to get trees cut down. And he was like, well, I don't know if I want a website. I don't really want to manage it. I don't really want to pay for it. And he's like, I'm booked up right now just doing yard signs. So when he cuts down trees, he, asks them if they can put the little sign in the yard. And he said he's fully booked up from those. And I thought that was so crazy. Like no advertising anywhere else, just sticking a sign in the yard. And that's what did it. Booked him all year round.
Yeah.
So pretty crazy.
And that speaks to the power of being local,
Sure.
the referral network. And then also, this is why like platforms like Nextdoor and Angie's List and, these neighborhood apps are so popular, is because it's essentially a referral.
Right.
It's using a digital platform, but it's giving someone a referral. It's like, hey, I use this tree guy. He's great. And then, it's an easy referral. And for people that aren't, maybe an older generation that aren't so familiar with going to Google and researching reviews and looking at a website, that might be really helpful for them. The majority, though, I think when I look at a business, I call them ports of entry. So you have a lot of different ways you can access a business. So how'd you find the tree guy?
That was, I believe it was the yard sign. I saw the yard sign and then I went to Facebook and got his number because I saw he didn't have a website. So
Okay. So you saw the sign, went to Facebook, got his number. So there was a certain level of digital presence that was needed to complete that transaction. And so not only is the yard sign a port of entry, but what does it lead to? Well, it leads to a Google search or, the Facebook or whatever. So there's something that needs to be there to let people into the business. So for most businesses, they have some type of on-the-ground advertising, whether it's a billboard, bus bench, shopping cart, whatever.
Sticker on the truck.
Yeah, sticker on a truck, some random QR code in a bathroom, whatever it is. That's one port of entry for a business. And then from there, you have to look at, okay, what's Facebook? What's Google look like? What's Instagram look like? What is the website? All of those things need to match in branding and efficacy in terms of who they are as a company in order to maintain that client. So let me ask you a question. So if you saw the yard sign, you went to Facebook, and on Facebook, it was nothing but negative reviews. Are you calling?
No.
So this dude dropped a tree in my house. He said it was my fault because I shouldn't have put my house there. Just the dumbest excuses.
Right. No, I would
You're
not
not
be
calling.
No.
And the fact that there was no negativity on that page said, okay, well, I saw he did work in my neighbor's house or down the road or wherever. Now I'm going to call him. And all of those things matter. And I think a lot of businesses miss the importance of all of those touch points because all of those are either going to make someone feel really good about doing business with you or really bad.
Sure.
And especially in that, it's kind of like when you're dating, those red flags are much more important the earlier you discover them.
Sure.
Right. And it's really important to make sure that you're limiting those red flags so that way you're not giving someone an excuse to go to a competitor.
Yeah.
Just like in dating. So Johnny, I want to bring you into this conversation. So you said something to me a while back. We were talking about, I don't know if it was garage door companies or what, but you were mentioning that you went to, you found out about a company, you went to Google and researched them, and then you decided to make a decision based on that. And my question for you is, being that you're a little bit older than Chris and I, like at what, bringing a different demographic. At
1913, I think you said earlier.
That's right. At what point do you think that you switched to the word of mouth to the word of Google and the reviews that were online?
I think for me, it would have to be a close friend, right? Somebody that they did the work for, that I trusted. Maybe even I could even see the end product, right? But if I went out to, I think, in one of your other episodes we talked about, if I do visit like a website or whatever, I want to see that about page, right? That's going to be on there because I want to see, hey, are they a new company? Are they an old company? What are they about?
Yeah.
I might even want to see, some of the equipment that they're going to use, things like that, right? That they're going to be there. But if it's going to be a referral, I feel pretty solid about a referral, right? Because I know that when I come to giving a referral, I'm not going to refer somebody that's done, not a good job for me.
Yeah.
I would just tell people, hey, this is what I think that, the work that was done, it was at this level, but I have no idea with pricing. It's not all the time do I look for 3 or 4 different prices, right? That's on there. And that should be a really big factor too. The cheap quote's not always their best quote, right? And, this is how it is. So,
yeah. And I think a lot of people don't have that process of, filtering, how do I find good businesses from bad businesses? And that's what leads entrepreneurs to take on, I'll say, bad business coaches with no track record or history.
Right.
If you remember on Waynecast, we did 2 episodes. One was on like 25 questions you should ask your website company, and then 25 questions you should ask your marketing company.
Yeah.
And we did those episodes specifically to be guides for businesses that are going out and soliciting bids for those services.
Right.
And Jason Ballard, one of our clients, who's a business coach, does a really nice job of this for his clients, or potential clients or prospects, or even people he meets that he might not even work with. He just says, here's a sheet that I've prepared. Here's all the questions you should ask your business coach.
Oh, cool.
And that way, you know that you're getting someone that's really quality. So even if you don't pick me as your business coach, you at least have a guide to go off of. And that's been really helpful for him from a reputation perspective, because it's a very kind thing to offer someone.
Right.
That's actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, Rob. That's actually a really great thing, because then at least you know at that point in time that the questions you're asking me as a business coach are the same questions you're asking person B, C, D, E, right? That you see you're comparing apples to apples of what you're going to provide compared to me. I get a fair shake answering the same questions you've asked every other guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is something I do when I sell for Wayne Media is I have a list of questions that they should be asking me. So when they get to the end of the meeting, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, hey, is there anything else that I should be asking that I'm not? And typically the 2 questions are, do I have to have an annual contract?
Yep.
And you don't. And do I own all of the media assets that you create for me? And you do. Nice. So those are typically the 2 things that people forget to ask. But if there's probably 5 or 6 questions on there that are important to cover. Generally, they'll get to most of them. But it's another level of credibility.
Right.
And as the market for life coaches and business coaches has expanded, it's just turned into, I really like this guy's energy or Instagram, or he's got a bunch of cash in the backseat of his Lambo. So I'm going to hire him based on that. And little did you know that was actually Monopoly money. The Lambo was rented. It's just not a thorough enough look into these companies. I'm being very generous with that term. And the business owners end up getting smoked.
Right.
And sadly enough, I've seen this here in Brighton. There's business coaches that operate here that they shouldn't be calling themselves business coaches. They've never ran or scaled a business. And I don't think that anything that they're doing is overall going to be a net positive for these businesses. And some of them have had to go back behind them and clean up and say, okay, this was just straight up terrible advice. Or I'll be like, okay, so you worked with a business coach for 6 months. What was your, tell me about, your ideal customer. How does sales work in your company? Like, oh, I've never gone through that. I'm like, that's day one, guys. Like if we don't know the target market or what the sales process is internally, how are you going to engineer any type of, product or marketing or anything towards that particular business?
Yeah. I feel like you have to understand the business. Like you can't just go in giving out advice for not knowing how they operate.
Yeah.
So do you think, Rob, that there's the old saying teachers teach and there's, hold on.
Those who can't do
teach, right? So do you think that some of your business coaches are falling into that same type of thing? They can't do it, so they teach how to do it, even though they don't know how to do it?
I don't think that metaphor is true. I don't believe that's true in any way, shape, or form. Like those that can't do teach. I think there might be like a physical truth to that. So let's say you were a basketball player or a football player and you can't play the game anymore. Now you're coaching. Like, okay, that makes sense. But if you're a business coach or consultant, you better have a track record of growing and scaling a business, whether you were the number 2 at a company and you did exceptionally well at expanding a division, or you were the number 1. Like you have to have some type of track record in order to show that you've been able to do this before. Because if not, what are you going to base all of that advice on?
Right. Yeah.
Third person experience. That's not helpful.
Yeah. And that's kind of it kind of goes back to another saying, when you get ready to start looking at it, as far as how a person gets experience if they're never given the opportunity to start with.
Yeah.
Right. So like a business coach, right? They have to get a first client sometime.
Yeah,
right, to
absolutely.
be able to get there. So
yeah, you have to have a first client sometime, and all of that needs to be based on what you did for yourself as a business owner. So for us, the last 5 years, I've learned a ton that I can then go and meet with someone. And even if it was my first time consulting them, be like, okay, here's all the mistakes I made. Here's the order I wish I would have done things in.
Right.
Then you're at least approaching it from a perspective of, okay, here's all the mistakes. Here's the order I should have done things in. And here's what you ought to do moving forward.
Yeah. Like what not to do.
Yeah. And when I speak to, whether it's the chamber or like to different groups of entrepreneurs, I always talk about what not to do rather than what to do, because those not to do's are universal.
Sure. Okay.
Whereas what you should do is never universal.
Right.
So if I'm like, oh, your business needs to be on Facebook, that doesn't apply to every business.
Right.
You might have a product company. Facebook's not going to be very effective for you compared to Instagram. So let's talk about websites, Chris.
Yeah.
So who needs a website?
Everybody needs a website.
Best salesman for the company.
Yeah. You need a website.
Yeah, like Oprah, except they're not free.
Right. Look under your chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, there's a rare opportunity where I think, or a rare situation where I think that a company doesn't need a website.
Yeah.
So I was looking around at this and finding out, like, who doesn't need a website, trying to rack my brain on it. And I did see someone had the point of restaurants not having a website. I thought it was interesting because, when you're looking for a restaurant, somebody gives you a referral, you see something and you check them out. The first thing you do is go look for reviews. Then maybe, if they're open, when they're open, and then pictures of the food. Like, you don't really jump into an about page. You're not going to read like, you might want to see
the chef's history.
Right. Yeah. You might want to see like what the restaurant's about, like what kind of food they offer, but that's all in the menu. That's all in the, the title. So,
well, Google Business has kind of taken the wind out of restaurants for needing a website. And that's a good argument to have because you can have your menu. You can even have your booking and reservation on Google Business linked to OpenTable. Mm-hmm. So you can have a lot of the things that a consumer would be looking for. I would say the only thing that I think most consumers would look at is if that website button is missing.
Sure.
The first thing that goes through my head is, why is it missing?
Yeah.
But to your point, photos, even videos of the atmosphere, the menu, the booking, the reviews, all of that can be on there.
Right.
And since it's local, Google Business is the perfect place for that.
Sure.
So I think that's definitely a contender, and it needs to be a weighted decision.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think you could survive without it is kind of what I was looking at.
Sure.
Like, you're not going to die if you don't have a website. It's nice to have. It's great to have.
Yeah.
And I think you should have one. I think an awesome experience coming to a website, like you said, seeing videos of the food cooking and all of that. Like, that would be great. That would pull people in, but it's not 100% necessary, probably.
We did a great website for a diner that was never published.
Never saw the light of day.
And that was such a shame too, because it's like a 50s style diner.
Yep.
And man, I was so frustrated that we never got that published.
I had so much fun building that too.
Yeah. It was basically like right out of the movie Grease, Yep. It was the 50s style, the pink retro colors, the neon, the menu. Yep. It was super cool. And then typical small business shenanigans going on where we're gonna move to another vendor for zero reason after hanging us out for 9 months.
Right.
It's just, those are the things to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
They probably shouldn't have a website. They're not going to maintain
I don't
it.
think they have one still.
Oh no,
they still don't have one.
Well, they probably got ours still sitting there somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's when you look at businesses that don't need a website, it needs to be very thoughtful. I would say to Johnny's earlier point, if you're a service-based company, if you're in the trades, you should have an about page. You should have a note on your equipment, your services. I would even argue pricing should be on there to qualify people. And then also from an SEO perspective, if you want to be found on Google, if that's one of the ports of entry for your company, then your SEO needs to be optimized. And that means blogs, videos, consistent content. And if you don't have those things and your competition does, and you don't have a strong referral base, you're probably going to go under pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah. I think if you don't have a website, you have to fill that gap somewhere else by having a really strong social media or, some kind of presence.
Yeah. This is
one thing that does drive me nuts though, is when I go out and I do like a Google search and I say, hey, give me, tree services near me. And it pulls up a bunch of tree services that aren't near me, even though I have my zip code in there and I'm getting people that I know they're going to charge me way more because they have a travel time, but yet they still pop up in my search stuff. Yeah. Right. That's
good irritating. That's good local SEO right
there. Is that what gets it? Is because of the other people aren't designing their, hey, we're located in here and here's where we service. Because I'm sure the guy that's coming from Southfield saying I service, 100 miles radius or whatever, and it puts him in my ballpark, but I'm not interested in paying the extra for him to drive the hour to get out to my house when I got 5 guys that are right down the road.
Sure.
Yeah. In Google Business, you can put up to 20 different locations outside of your brick and mortar address. So that gives you the ability to pop into other regions that you service, but you might not be located in. And to your point, Johnny, if I was a tree service, I wouldn't put a area that I serve that would be an additional fee for me to service it, because it's not false advertising. It's just probably false expectations. Because if I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Clio, but I'm not putting on the website, that's going to be another $100 fee for me to go to Clio.
Sure.
That's a waste of my time as a business owner as well. Because then when I tell you about it, most people aren't going to want to pay it.
Right.
Probably. So it's just, again, that going back to the, being thoughtful about the actual business. All right. So to wrap up, before we wrap up, you know what everyone does need, Chris?
What's that?
CGC water.
Yeah.
And
it's been great.
Yeah, right. And it is the sponsor of the podcast. And I've talked about them several times, and we've done a lot of work with CGC. They just had an open house recently, which was a lot of fun to attend. And if you are looking for a water treatment plumbing company out of Livingston County, they're absolutely the best option for you. I have valued every single relationship that I have with everyone in that company. Everyone has been extremely kind and friendly. And even before they were a sponsor of the show, we had their water in our studio. They were frequent visitors on other podcasts that we do, and they just have an extraordinary community reputation. They take part in, I'm going to say, every major event that happens in Livingston County, CGC is a part of, which is why I wanted them to partner with me on this show, because I wanted a local community partner. And then obviously KeyBank, which this podcast is sponsored by, also major community partner as well. But I wanted people that worked really well with the community and that I could trust and that I had a good relationship with. So if you're looking for a whole house filtration system or just simple 5-gallon water to deliver, take a look at CGC. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. All right. Enough paying the bills. That's what people say on podcasts. I gotta stop and pay the bills. It's I mean, that'd be great if one sponsor paid all the bills. It'd be like Joe Rogan level. Dude, someone's telling me like an ad spot for him was like $100K. I'm like, I think it was a 6-month term or something. I don't know if that's true or not, but that seems crazy. Yeah. But then again, you're getting 12 to 14 million downloads an episode. So that's pretty damn good reach. Right. So, all right. So Chris, anything else on websites that people ought to know about when it comes to do's, don'ts, things that business coaches might give some poor advice on?
Let's see. Things you do, go to waynemedia.com.
Yes. That reminds me of, we did a podcast yesterday with someone from CGC, and I said, is there any circumstance where someone, gives you a sample of water the first time and it's great, there's no problems with it? And she's like, yeah, when they install our system. It was just such a great one-liner. Yeah. It's the same thing. You go to Wayne Media, that's where you get all your website problems fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically.
One thing I've wondered about business coaches is how they can advise on like marketing. Right. If you've never developed a website or been through that process, or even like social media. And that's why, like I mentioned, Ballard, he does a great job because he has, even before us, marketing partners that he brings to the table to talk about things he doesn't know as much about.
Oh, nice.
And I think that's a huge credibility check, because you're not trying to do all things for all people. You're trying to do, here's what I know, and here's the vendors that I know they're going to help you get to where you need to go. Yeah. It's not just I can do it all.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking about, is that's got to be a hell of a sales pitch to like talk someone into being your business coach or life coach or something with, no experience, or even if they're years and years younger than you. It's got to be real rough.
Yeah, it's like, you're 22, I'm 58, what are you going to teach me? Right. And that's probably why it doesn't work out as well. Sure. Dar, were you going to say something, Johnny? Oh, we can cut that part out. I don't know why. Nope. I thought I heard you in the mic. I don't know why. It's just be a phantom.
No, he did, but he did say 58, how old I am. So I wasn't sure.
Are you 58?
Yeah.
Dude, you don't look 58.
No. Not a day over 27.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A day over 1913. Awesome. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of Theory of Why. So, Chris, first guest.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Good. It was fun.
A tremendous honor.
Yeah.
that we don't extend to everybody. We don't only extend it to one person. You can only be the first guest one time.
Right.
So I'm excited. I think as we continue to go on, like one aspect I like, we've talked about doing this with Wingcast, we just never got around to it, was having different people from the company giving their do's and don'ts. Mm-hmm. Because you know far more about web than I do. You're in it every day. I'm not in it every day. Same thing with the other people that are leading the different departments around here.
Sure.
So Johnny knows more about podcasting than I do. He does it every day. Mm-hmm. He's a professional. We need me talking about podcasting for you. Want Johnny sitting there telling you what to do.
Right.
Telling you not to be smacking lips into the microphone and making a fool of yourself. Is that right?
I forgot about that.
Yeah. You don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, you don't want to do that, but people do it. And I'll edit it out.
Yeah. They shouldn't. Because then you feel like you've got a bunch of jump cuts all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good. All right, gang, well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Theory of Why. I appreciate all of you watching. Be sure to check out our sponsor in the show notes, CGC. Apart from that, we'll catch you next week. Take care.